Our first speaker today is Molly Hillstrom. She's a UX design lead at Open System Technologies. She's an accomplished digital strategist, designer, and leader with experience across multiple industries, including healthcare, education, e-commerce, and connected products. She has a strong passion for user research and the human-centered design process, and she's about to give an awesome speech. So put your hands together for Molly Hillstrom.
All right. Happy World Usability Day, everybody. I'm gonna get some water set up here because 50 minutes is kind of a long time to talk. All right. There we go. All right, that's a really big picture of me. I am Molly Hillstrom, and I have been doing some sort of design work in the Twin Cities now for about 20 years. And I've had a lot of different titles in my career, but I'm trying out a new one today, UX Vigilante. I think it has a nice ring to it. Also, in my 20 years of design work, I have worn a lot of different hats and worked at a lot of different places. But I am now at a company called OST. It's a Midwest consultancy with a great office right here in Minneapolis. Our core competencies are in strategy and insights, digital experience, connected products, as well as hybrid IT and enterprise managed services. We do it all in order to help our clients find their way through digital transformation. And I think it's actually a really charming company. We have amazing guiding principles. And in fact, I brought this up because I just want to point out that first bit about how we honor our employees and their families first, our clients second, and the rest will fall into place. And they really do practice that, and it's pretty awesome. So if you want to know more, find me afterwards or reach out. I'd love to talk about it. All right, today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about progress. We humans have come a really long ways, and we have accomplished a ton. And I'm going to start out by talking a little bit about the consequences of some of our advancements. Then I'm going to share some stories from my own career where I feel maybe progress went off the rails a little bit. I'll also share what I think we need to watch out for as we bring new digital things into the world, and why, as designers, we are uniquely equipped to start really critical conversations about our world's digital transformation. Because human beings are far from perfect, and we make mistakes, big and small. But as we make mistakes, we learn, and the thing that makes us so great, our species so successful, is our ability to do better and be better. And that is what I'm going to talk to you about today. This is Eli Whitney. Eli was an inventor at the end of the 18th and into the early part of the 19th century. Eli's first big patent was in 1794 for this machine. And at the time, he was living among the cotton plantations of the South. And while there was a vast quantity of raw cotton, it actually took hours of manual labor to properly clean the seed and extract the fibers. So Eli, being the inventor that he was, he created this machine that did the separating automatically. And he called it the cotton engine, or the cotton gin, as it widely became known. And this machine could produce more cotton in an hour than what previously took multiple workers in a day. A hand-cranked model like this one could clean up to 50 pounds of cotton in a day. Progress. And you most likely already know who was tasked with operating the new cotton gin. Slavery was actually on the wane in the South when Eli made his first trip to the US Patent Office, and while you might think that creating efficiency with such a machine would have reduced the need for slaves even further, but that's not what happened. The year Eli filed his patent, the US was producing a mere 3,000 bales of cotton a year, and just for reference, one bale is about 480 pounds of cotton. Also at this time, there was about 750,000 slaves in the US. And in the 10 years following the introduction of Eli's invention, cotton production increased 25 times what it had been. In that same time, the number of slaves in the US grew by 60%. By 1840, the US was producing over 1.3 million bales of cotton a year, and the slave population grew to nearly 3 million. And by 1860, the amount of cotton the US produced had swelled to nearly 4 million bales of cotton a year. That is a lot of cotton. And historians refer to this period as the Cotton Revolution. And as a result, the American South expanded its wealth, grew in population, and became an integral part of an increasingly global economy. And their dependency on slaves grew exponentially as well, because while his cotton gin had reduced the number of workers needed to remove the seeds from the fiber, it actually increased the number of slaves plantation owners needed to plant, cultivate, and harvest the cotton. Also in 1860, Abraham Lincoln was elected president. The slave population in the United States had reached its peak. And some historians argue that without the cotton gin, the Civil War would have never happened, as you know, also happened shortly after 1860. So Eli certainly didn't know that his invention was going to change the course of history. He just saw a problem and wanted to fix it. He died, by the way, in 1825, and even though he patented this machine, it was a really simple machine that was really easy to copy. And he couldn't litigate every farmer that had a bootleg cotton gin, so he never really made a lot of money from this particular invention. So the story of the cotton gin is not the only story of unintended consequences, and while the consequences are not always bad, there are usually winners and losers. The movable type printing press was created in 1439. And the era of mass communication was born. Suddenly, books were something that people could have. I mean, you still had to be rich. But literacy grew among the population of Europe. With more access to printed books, people could learn how to read. And it allowed for a mostly unrestricted flow of information, and ideas spread far and wide. So it really permanently altered the structure of society, and it led to cultural and social revolutions. It also made things like propaganda possible, which was immediately weaponized by the Protestants and the Catholics during the Reformation. And this disrupted the religious order of Europe and resulted in a series of religious wars that roughly, it's estimated, about 10 million people died in. Asbestos has been around for a really long time, but so is fire. And fire used to wipe out whole cities, burn it to the ground. It was a real problem, especially with the dense city living that happened during the Industrial Revolution. And asbestos' resistance to chemicals, to heat, to water, and electricity made it the most excellent insulator for everything, for steam engines, for turbines, for boilers, ovens, electrical generators, you name it. It was a miracle, and it was used everywhere. On a microscopic level, though, it's basically little glass needles. Glass needles that, when inhaled, stay in your body, causing all sorts of issues, including the deadly disease mesothelioma. In 1908, Henry Ford introduced the first mass-produced automobile, the Model T. And what followed was a century of building a road and bridge infrastructure that today defines our city's landscapes. It allowed for an efficiency in the distribution of goods that we had never seen before. And as our realm of travel expanded, our country became smaller, and the American road trip was born. There were some downsides too. Highways displaced residents and split up neighborhoods, parking lots replaced green space, the suburbs happened. And today, the average US commuter spends about 42 hours a year stuck in traffic. If you're coming in and out of downtown every day like me, it might be more than that. And people die. Currently, about 3,300 people a day. You might have heard of Photoshop. Well, not the first design tool. Photoshop was the first robust digital option that was widely adopted. And it helped spur on graphic design as a profession. For those of you that might be new to user experience, for a long time, this was the only real tool available to us. And as a college student, I fell in love with Photoshop. It was my paintbrush. I don't know if anyone here has ever manually burned or dodged a photograph in a darkroom before. Yeah, it's hard. There's a lot of steps. You can't really see what you're doing. And there's no undo button. So with Photoshop, amazing things happened, like a tiger keet. Really, with just a series of clicks, you could create whatever your imagination came up with. And while we maybe could have predicted the use of Photoshop for trickery, I certainly never imagined that the wide adoption of Photoshop meant that we also had the ability to change our society's beauty ideals. That picture there on the left, the one that looks like a human stick figure, that photo is from a Ralph Lauren ad in 2010. And photos like these have set unrealistic expectations for how our bodies should look. And as a result, we're seeing things like eating disorders and body dysmorphia. It's because we're telling people to be something that is impossible. I mean, unless you don't need internal organs. Many of us here remember Apple's announcement of the iPhone about 11 years ago. And oh my God, it was a pocket computer with a screen large enough that you could comfortably read on, you could build a user interface for. I remember thinking to myself, this changes everything. And it did, because we now have seemingly unlimited access to information and knowledge from anywhere, and we're more connected than ever. We are always one call, one text, one IM, one DM, one FaceTime away, no matter what we're doing or where we are. And as a result, we have more exposure to other parts of the world than any time before. And apps have changed the way we think about everything: transportation, our social connections, how we get around, shopping, health, fitness, and we track everything. We track our runs, our bike rides, our spending, our calories. We produce and store data like little data pack rats. And the cameras on our smartphones have changed how we document our world, our families, our communities, our law enforcement. There is truly nothing else quite like the smartphone in the way it has changed the daily behaviors of so many people in such a short period of time. In fact, many of us are having a hard time disconnecting. Phubbing is now a word in our vocabulary. If you don't know it, it's okay. I'll give you a second to look it up. The invention that was meant to connect us, to bring us closer together, is sometimes the very thing that is keeping us from our real-life connections. So basically, our world was built on unintended consequences, and there are far more than we can ever count. So is this just what progress looks like? We fumble through our mistakes, realizing our blunders only after the fact? The problem with that is that our technology continues to move faster than ever. It's moving faster than medicine. It's moving faster than we can write laws. It is moving faster than we can realize the consequences. And the scariest part is that we don't yet know the result of some of our biggest tech experiments. What are GPS and navigation apps going to do to our sense of direction and our ability to read a map? My 10-year-old, the other day, I showed him a paper map, and he just needed to know well, Mom, where are we on it? There's no blue dot. There's no pin. Okay? How will autonomous cars change our cities and how we live? And what is all this shit doing to our kids? It is seriously a big concern of mine. Okay, we may not have all the answers, and we may not yet know what we don't know. And there are things that we can do to help uncover unintended consequences, and I'll get to those. But first, I want to underscore a point. Unintentional is different than unethical, because while many things can be considered unintentional, our failure to anticipate or even consider the consequences of what we put out into the world is something entirely different. In my 20 years as a UX designer, my work has no doubt already had many consequences. I know for sure that my designs have resulted in the closing of call centers. The business objective behind that kind of work is usually to reduce costs, something that companies have been doing for as long as there have been companies. And because of me, because of something that I put out into the world, people at a call center lost their jobs. It wasn't her, though, because she's a model. And I don't know if anyone here has ever been to an actual call center, physically walked into a call center space. It doesn't look like this. It's not a big light-filled room with everybody wearing shades of baby blue and looking like they shop at Banana Republic. Sorry. I'm getting some messages here. Okay, I'm just going to move it out of the way. There we go. All right. So because of something I put out into the world, she lost her job. Well, not really. There we go. Okay, so no, call centers tend to look a little bit more like this. And I've never worked at a call center before, but this does not look like the kind of environment that leads to human vitality. When I see something like this, I start to think that call centers are probably the unintended consequence of something else. But when our designs reduce the need for call centers, what is that? Is that unintentional? Is it unethical? Is it just progress? And I'm not going to try and answer these questions for you. We all have to come to our own conclusion. But I think that it's really critical that as designers, we start to have these conversations. Okay, I'm going to tell you guys a story. Many years ago, I worked for a health and wellness company. And the published purpose of that company was to help people be healthy. And we were really into our purpose. We had it up on the wall in the break room in big black vinyl letters. And every time somebody started new at the company, we had this little ceremony where we stood around this wall, and each new person would take this big felt-tipped marker and sign their name next to it, pledging their commitment to this purpose. I felt so good working for a company like this. I just knew we were going to build amazing things. So the CMO of that company came and gave me my first task, which was to help design a wellness platform where people could go in and track their healthy activity and earn rewards. And the CMO asked me, he's like, I think we need to make it fun, because telling a computer that you ate a healthy breakfast and went for a 20-minute walk in and of itself isn't fun. And keep in mind, too, that this was before the smartphone took over. It was before Fitbits and before smartwatches. So we were actually expecting people to log in on their desktop computer or their laptop, I'm not that old, and report back on the healthy things they had been doing. And then he said he wanted it to be sticky. He wanted people to come back into the product every day or multiple times a day so that they could track more activity and earn more rewards. Okay. And then he said he wanted me to gamify the experience. And this is back when gamify was the sparkliest marketing term in town. Has anybody here ever been asked to gamify something? Yes, gamify. So he even flew me out to New York City, where I attended the Gamification Summit. It's a thing, it's still happening, you can still go, where I learned about badging, point structures, scarcity, leaderboards, feedback cycles. It was great, it was fascinating. Next, he hired this man, BJ Fogg. BJ Fogg is a professor of behavioral science at Stanford University. and he is known as the father of persuasive technology. And in his words, he makes machines designed to change humans. And in the words of his former students, a couple of which went on to found Instagram, he is known as the Millionaire Maker. So the CMO flew him out to Minneapolis to run my team through his behavior change boot camp, where we learned how to use the design of digital products to alter human thoughts and behaviors. We strove to create a digital environment that users feel fulfill their basic human drives to obtain goals, to be social, to be accepted. And I'm not going to go into his methods here, but I took BJ's principles and I applied them to the product I was working on. And we were pretty successful. That company went on to make a lot of money off of that product. And so the irony of the fact that I was designing a product that was intended to assist with healthy behavior but required you to sit in front of a computer multiple times a day, that was not lost on me at the time. But those were my marching orders, and I was eager to please and to prove to everybody that I was good at this design thing. So I didn't ask about it. I didn't approach the subject because I assumed the CMO was right. He was older, he was more experienced, he had confidence, he lived in California. In order to be successful like him, I needed to deliver on his vision. Later, I would come to understand that the large employers that bought our product and then provided it to their employees as a benefit paid my company based on engagement. So the number of times people logged into that application directly equated to profit for my company. So did logging into this application over and over and over again help people be healthy? Probably not, but it definitely helped make my company more money. And I'm not saying that people at this company didn't want to help people be healthy. I am sure many of them did. I think we all did. I know I did. But in the end, helping people be healthy, it sure didn't feel like our purpose. Okay, I have one more story for you. It's from another time, slightly more recent, but still many years ago. And this time, my manager approached me about a need he had. A bunch of clients were coming into town. It's like a sort of internal conference for our company. And he needed something to show them. We hadn't released anything new in a while, but we had been spending a lot of time thinking about what our next generation product would be. So we had an idea of our direction, but in terms of a product design, we had a blank canvas. We had not put pen to paper yet. So my manager comes and says, all right, we need to create something for our clients, something that showcases this next-gen thinking that we've been working on. He said he needed it to be really visual, really attractive. He wanted to wow them. I think he said, make it sexy. Okay? And I remember being so confused by the request because it was so outside of our normal process. We weren't going to do any research to validate the direction. We weren't going to do discovery or exploration, no sketching, no wireframes, no content, or even a strategy. He just wanted me to make app screens. He told me to think of it as a concept car, so something that was never intended for production, but that stretched people's imaginations. I had never done this before. So I did what I had done so many times before. I did what was familiar. I made mock-ups. Full color, full fidelity mock-ups like I would hand off to a developer. And I made a lot of them because truthfully, it was fun. I didn't have to worry about how my company would operationally support the features I was dreaming up. I didn't have to worry about technical constraints or accessibility or regulatory issues. It was playland for me, and the world was my oyster. And my manager loved it. And he showed it to our clients, and they loved it, and they couldn't wait for our next release. And then our sales guys got wind of it, and they slipped it in their sales decks, and they brought it out to wow potential clients. I think y'all know where this is going. Yeah, so we signed more clients, we made more money, and things seemed great. I got great recognition for my creative work at this company, except it was a trick. True to a concept car, this app was never built. I didn't have a word for it at the time, but this is what we refer to as vaporware, and it's super unethical. And I have more stories like these, stories that I am not proud of, and I am not proud because I played a very big role in doing something that I later realized was unethical. And it wasn't because I lacked ethics. I lived my life in an ethical way. I'm a good person. So how did this happen? And this is where I confess to all of you that I have no formal education in user experience design. Who here does? Who here went to school specifically for user experience design? Prime people, come on, let's see it. Be proud, I love it. That's super exciting. Okay, so the reason I don't have a formal UX education is because I did my post-secondary education in the 90s, and there weren't any programs, there was no curriculum. And like so many others, I just figured this stuff out. And I had a great liberal arts education. I went to a great liberal arts college. Shout out to McAllister. Yeah. And I never took an ethics class. I took a poetry class, I took a physics class, I took a class on the Harlem Renaissance. I even took a class on Big Bang cosmology. I'm pretty sure I didn't pass that one, it was a bad idea. But ethics, no, that sounded boring to me because I became a designer to make cool rock show posters and websites that wowed my friends. I didn't think much about ethics in my work because it wasn't even on my radar. When I left school and entered the adult world, I was really clear on what had to be done. I had to get a job. I needed a job so that I could make money, and I needed to make money so I could have a life. And once I had that job, I wanted to keep that job so I could do even more lifing. So keeping that job meant doing what my leaders asked of me. At least that's how I understood it at the time. And there were lots of others, just like me, doing similar things, following similar orders. You didn't think I was going to do a talk on ethics without bringing up Facebook, did you? Okay, so it turns out I'm not the only designer to have been asked to do things that later turned out to be a bad idea. And I initially thought that some of the negative things about Facebook, things like their habit-forming elements, came about as unintended consequences. But to understand Facebook, you have to start at the beginning. Aw, yeah, aw. As a student of Harvard University, Mark Zuckerberg and his buds put their heads together and used their collective genius to create Facemash. Yep, Facebook was not Mark's first attempt at greatness. Facemash was basically a hot or not game, if you're old enough to remember that he and his friends created so that they could rate the girls on campus in terms of their physical attractiveness. And their photos were actually collected from official school phone directories, so Harvard shut this down real fast and threatened to kick Mark out. And it was also around this time that some other students at Harvard were working on a social platform called the Harvard Connection, where students could add people as friends, send them messages, maybe update their personal profiles in order to notify friends about what was going on. Sounds familiar. After a couple years of working on building it out, they connected with Mark, who agreed to partner with them to complete the application, which they were hoping to roll out to other universities beyond Harvard. So Mark helped them with this new platform, and at the same time that he was helping them, he happened to go online and purchase the domain name, thefacebook.com. And so, right as soon as the Harvard Connection launched, Mark also launched Facebook. And so this competing platform was so similar that it actually resulted in a lawsuit that was later settled out of court. In the meantime, Facebook grew to be what Harvard Connection wanted to be. It expanded to other universities, and in 2004, it was incorporated with Sean Parker as president. And Sean Parker, by the way, had been the founder of Napster, if you're old enough to remember what happened there. So just in case I haven't convinced you of the unethical roots of this company, here is Sean Parker, just last year, being interviewed and talking about the early days of Facebook. And I'm going to figure out how I can get my cursor over there.
You know, if the thought process that went into building these applications, Facebook being the first of them to really understand it, that thought process was all about how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. And that means that we need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while because someone liked or commented on a photo or a post or whatever. And that's going to get you to contribute more content, and that's going to get you, you know, more likes and comments. I mean, it's a social validation feedback loop that it's like it's exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with, because you're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. And I think that the inventors, creators, you know, and it's me, it's Mark, it's Kevin Systrom at Instagram, it's all of these people, understood this consciously, and we did it anyway.
Yep. So I really can't emphasize enough how dangerous it is when powerful people think this way. And as it turns out, making money at any and all costs leads to some bad results, at least in the long term. Who here is a designer? Okay, and because by designer, I'm really meaning like anybody who is making decisions about features and interfaces in a product. Okay, awesome. To you designers, if you're thinking right now that you have no power over this, I think you're wrong, and I'm going to let you in on a little secret. You're special. Okay, actually, I'm really sick of all the dumb unicorns everywhere. Scratch that. You're not just special. You are powerful. And if you're not a designer, that's okay. I'm sure you're special and powerful in your own way, too. In fact, if you're not a designer, I would like to challenge you to think about your role here, too, whether you're a developer, a marketer, a product manager, because you have power, too. I'm just not going to talk about it as much. Because the influence of design is expanding, and its value is huge. I have seen companies get acquired for the sole reason that they have beautiful UI. Designers have power, and there are more of us than ever before. And our world is changing. Digital transformation is happening, and designers need to transform too. Know your power to influence both the behaviors of your users and the decisions of your business. It's time to feel your power and to feel your responsibility, because design in this brave new world will require constant vigilance. To help you in your quest, I have identified 5 villains to watch out for. The first are privacy eroders. Privacy eroders think that good, honest people should have nothing to hide. I actually shared this mentality at one point, and I thought people were kind of paranoid for being so privacy conscious. And then my husband and I bought a new house, and he got really into home automation. He's a software engineer. And now his phone lights up anytime I open a door or enter the garage or turn up the heat or turn on a light, and it drives me crazy. And don't get me wrong, there are huge benefits to technologies that impact privacy. Monitoring technologies can allow the elderly to live more independently or parents to feel confident in the safety of their children. But constant monitoring can also lead to a degraded sense of privacy and loss of dignity. So privacy is important to our autonomy, even if you're an honest, law-abiding citizen. Privacy eroders set defaults that favor the business. Users either trust defaults or they're too lazy to change them. And so if you are exploiting this, then you could be a privacy eroder. Privacy eroders ask for access to things they have no business asking for access to. You know those fun augmented reality photo filters for selfies? I really love those. But an app like this should need access to my camera and photos. The rest of this is the work of privacy eroders. And I think that most people understand now that data collection is a core part of advertising-based businesses. Yet, most people have no idea exactly what is being collected and what companies are doing with that data. Privacy eroders then hide what they're doing with your data in the terms and conditions. And more than 90% of people agree to terms and conditions without reading them. I'm one of them because even if I did have time to read those, they're written by lawyers. Gross. The second villain is time suckers. Time suckers are after your attention, and it's never enough. And time suckers don't call it addiction, they call it maximizing engagement. And anyone with a young child knows that there is just something about screens. Our brains love them, those bright, colorful screens that are touchable and manipulatable. There's a lot of talk right now about whether screens and devices are addictive, and I think it depends on how you define addiction. If you define addiction to mean something you enjoy doing in the short term, but undermines your well-being in the long term, but you do it compulsively anyways, then that sounds familiar. Side note, the problem with saying someone is addicted to an app or a device is that it blames the user. We created the addictive experience. Time suckers want you to value your device interactions more than your real-world interactions. On average, we look at our phones 150 times a day. That's average. Some people look at them a lot more. I'm pretty sure I've looked at mine that much already today. And as adults, we can try to be conscious of our usage and employ techniques to put the devices down, but children have much fewer self-control resources and they lack the kind of long-term thinking that comes with, mental development. And it's also critical that they have face-to-face interactions because without that trial and error period of childhood, they don't get to know what does and doesn't work socially. The third villain are distractors. Distractors tax our attention. They distract you not just from your real-world interactions, but from critical tasks that require your full attention. And therefore, distractors push us to the limits of human capability. Car makers have been adding tech features for years now. One could argue they're more fun and comfortable than ever because we have integrated communication centers, navigation systems, entertainment systems. Everything heats up or cools down. And screens, beautiful screens. And it's great, except that operating a car already requires every single one of our human senses. The fourth are de-skillers. De-skillers reduce the need for skilled operators by augmenting human intelligence. And we've developed some powerful support systems for humans, especially for very demanding environments. Take an airplane cockpit, for example. The tools that pilots have available to them today have reduced the number of errors and no doubt saved lives. However, this also creates a situation where skilled operators can be replaced with less skilled operators. So which competencies that pilots are required to have today could be dropped as a result of this? In the future, are pilots more like bus drivers? Do they go away altogether? In some cases, if the operator is already low skilled, they are disappearing already. Some of our lowest skilled jobs are being displaced by technology. And this contributes to some big problems like wage stagnation, income gaps, and unemployment. And as a result of this, de-skillers will change our workforce and impact the very nature of our society. The last villain are fakers. Fakers tout a new product years before its release, if it ever does release. Fakers will use strong visuals to make something seem more or different than it is. And fakers use provocative, misleading, or false language to coerce clicks, otherwise known as clickbait. And fakers are tricky. They use things like dark patterns to get users to do things that they wouldn't normally do. If you've ever accidentally added trip insurance or some other add-on item in a checkout process, that's probably the work of fakers. If you've ever accidentally clicked an ad because you thought it was part of the user interface on a web page, that's a work of fakers. A well-known example of this is LinkedIn's original sign-up process. If you allowed yourself to get guided through, you were asked to give them access to your email account so that they could import your contacts. And why wouldn't you? Because every career needs a strong network, right? So during that import, you were asked to click an innocent-sounding Add to Network button. This should have been a Spam Your Friends button, because by clicking this button, you are giving LinkedIn permission to send email invitations to every single person you have ever emailed. If anybody ever remembers the emails that you used to get, so-and-so has invited you to join LinkedIn, like you got them all the time. And it was because of this. And there's this one sentence at the very bottom that says, if someone you invite doesn't respond right away, we'll send up to 2 reminders. This particular dark pattern resulted in a successful class action lawsuit against LinkedIn in California. Thought you should know that. So early in my career, I saw myself as the advocate for the end user. I was their voice at the conference table. I owned the persona. I spoke for them. And then somewhere along the line, somebody said, that's all well and good, Molly, except if you want to be successful at this company, you also need to consider the business. Because we're not just here to make things people like, right? We have to make money. And this made sense to me. Okay, great. And so the era of balancing business objectives with user needs was born. And I still believe that the intersection of user needs and business objectives is where the sweet spot is. But I think it leaves a lot out. What about the needs of the user's family, their kids, their spouse, their parents, or the needs of our community, their friends and neighbors and people and citizens of the world? It's a little more complicated, but I think the sweet spot is still there. You can still build products that ethically serve people and meet business objectives, but you might have to look a little harder to find it. It is complex, but that's okay because we're smart, capable, powerful designers, and we can do this. And in your SuperUX suite, you have some great tools. I'm going to talk about 7 different tools that you likely already have some experience with because you practice some version of them as part of your design work today. So now we're going to look at how to leverage these a little bit to build more ethical products. One of your biggest superpowers is vigilance. So pay attention to what's going on at your company. Regardless of what it says on the mission section of your company's website, pay attention to what is motivating people. Take a moment to examine the initiatives and decisions that are being made. Why were those decisions made? Who is benefiting from those decisions? The culture of a company can tell you a lot about what's going on and what's being built. Pay attention to common phrases that people use. I used to work at a company that coined the term gravity issue, as in, Molly, that thing you brought up, that's a gravity issue. It's like gravity, there's nothing we can do about it. Or another one of my favorites, it is what it is. Yeah, these are phrases that are meant to strip us of our power. If people are telling you that you have no power, know that they are wrong. Pay attention to who is getting paid by who. What are all the ways your company is making money? Because it's not always obvious. Pay attention to your company's process. Agile development methods have the downside of being laser focused on features and user stories. Don't get bogged down by that. You have to pull back and see the larger picture throughout the process. And pay attention to yourself. What are your personal justifications? Why did you take that job? Why are you with that company? What is important to you in the world? What are your own personal guiding principles? Another one of your superpowers is the ability to conduct research. The human-centered design process requires research to understand how the product you're designing can fit into your current user's life. Also consider the broader impact. Ask questions like, what's the worst thing that could happen with this product? Or, what happens if we're wildly successful? What happens after a year, after 5 years or 10 years? What is your direction? What principles guide you? And learn about psychology, learn about our brains, our motivations and behaviors. The science here is growing, so pay attention. The more you know about what makes us tick, the more you can avoid many unintended consequences. Use history as a guide. Look at products that came before yours, even way before yours, before you were born, before your parents were born. If Facebook had looked to history, the idea that Russians could use the platform to push propaganda and fan the flames that divide us wouldn't have seemed so far-fetched. Okay, this one seems a little obvious, but it's a good reminder that honesty is the best policy. And be careful about hiding things. We all know the power of simplicity. We strive to make experiences easy and frictionless for our users, and it's okay to keep some things behind the scenes, but don't trick people into doing anything they wouldn't choose on their own. So transparency is important. We especially need to do a better job with terms and conditions. Nobody can read lawyer speak except lawyers because they went to law school, and chances are your users did not. In the past, terms and conditions weren't something that I put my time and energy towards because you just kind of hoped nobody even clicked that link because it's just a big, long text page. But terms and conditions matter too. They need to be considered part of the experience. TLDR Legal is a site that has a database of software licenses that they have attempted to translate into more human terms. This is YouTube's terms of service. So they've done the work of taking the long, dense legal language on the right, and this is just the top of the page. It goes on. And then on the left is something that you can actually read and understand. You should go out to this site later and look up your favorite sites, because you'll be horrified by what their terms really say. Dropbox. Okay. Use the correct fidelity. Low fidelity should be used for things that are conceptual, so everyone knows what it really is. If the idea is still abstract, the visuals should be too. And that doesn't mean that it can't be pretty. I think there is an elegance in this simplicity, and you can put some color to this and brand it, and your sales guys can still put it in their deck and bring it out to wow clients. But everybody will know where you are in the process. We're used to listening to our users and our stakeholders, and now I think we need to listen to everyone else, especially those on your team. If there's one person on your team that is overly privacy conscious, don't think they're paranoid. Don't discount people's concerns. Listen to them, because it's likely that some of your users will share their concerns, and their concerns could be reflecting potential unintended consequences. Also, how diverse is your team? Many of the unethical things happening in our industry is because teams reflect a single group of people, a single viewpoint. Some of the AI systems that are being created are showing biases because the people who created them have biases, and the data that they were fed have biases. We all make decisions based on our own life experiences. This is a very normal human thing to do. You need to collaborate with a diverse team, not just diverse in skill, but diverse in background, diverse in experiences, diverse in life. Diverse teams are better teams, and it's really the only way you're ever going to get outside of the world that you know. And listen to yourself. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. Don't look past that nagging feeling you have. I wish I hadn't. Your conscience is a great superpower. And then speak up, because remember, you're powerful. As UX designers, we are used to asking why. We ask why to understand our user's mental model. We ask why to understand motivations. We're pretty much like annoying toddlers. Now I want to have you ask everybody else why. Ask your boss why. Ask your product owner why. Ask your developers why. Don't be afraid of sounding stupid. Your curious mind is an asset. And be the one to start the conversation. Don't assume that somebody else is dealing with it. Start that conversation about privacy. Start that conversation about potentially overtaxing your user's attention. Be the one to think about and bring up the ethics of the product you're designing. And honestly, if you don't care about your users, you probably should find a new line of work. Because at the end of the day, we must consider where our responsibilities lie. With the organization that reaps financial gains from technology, or with the user who may possibly suffer negative consequences from it. And we can't limit our attention to the target market, because your designs will likely impact more than that. Care about everybody. Be inclusive. Recruit diverse participants for research studies. Design accessible products even when you don't have to. Care about people beyond the time that they're just using your product. And invest in the things you care about. Hate that you put call center employees out of work? Volunteer with nonprofits working to retrain low-skilled workers into jobs that are in demand. There are lots of opportunities and groups, even right here in the Twin Cities, and they need your help. I'm happy to make referrals, by the way, if anybody is looking. Just let me know. And please, please, for the love of God, stop idolizing innovators and technology billionaires. These are not the leaders we should look up to. Sure, they're successful. They have gained tremendous personal wealth. But at what cost? And how many have been harmed by their rise to power? These are some of the most powerful men in the world, except for Steve, he's gone. And when we give them our attention and adoration, we really only feed their power. And finally, be convincing. In recent years, I have seen UX designers get way better at speaking the language of business. Honestly, in just the last 5 years. It allows us to get buy-in from stakeholders. It allows us to get funding for doing research. It helps our companies prioritize the user experience. Use that same business language to help your company understand that ethical design is good for business. More and more, we, the users of digital technology, will be asking, does this company have my best interest at heart? And we don't react well when we feel like we've been tricked. Warn your decision business makers that unethical design creates litigation risk, aka gets you sued. Help them understand that transparency builds trust and loyalty. Figure out what the important business metrics are for your company and then use them, whether that's repeat users or NPS score. Use that. And sometimes it's effective to tie your argument back to the company's mission, its values, its purpose, or principles. Use their own words to make your case. And if all else fails, be disobedient. Don't do it. Even if it means you lose your job, being fired is not the end of the world. I've been fired, and I'm pretty sure it's one of the best things that's ever happened to me. Okay, I'm going to leave you with a JFK quote today. He said this in 1962 as part of the famous "We're going to the moon" speech. And his words were true for the space technologies that existed at the time, and they are relevant to our situation now too, except I'm going to change it a little bit to make it less sexist. You're allowed to make mistakes. I certainly have, and I'll make more. It's what we do after realizing our mistakes that really matters. And I shared some stories today that are frankly a little hard to share with such a big group of people, and I may get a little flack about it. But I do so in hopes that you can learn from my mistakes and that together we can all evolve, because each of us is responsible for what we put out into the world. And I hope that this can be a time of awakening for us. I think we have to pay closer attention and do better. Be better. Thank you.
All right, and now let's give Molly one more round of applause. At 10 o'clock, which is in about 3 minutes, our second speaker is going to start here. That is Mike Sheldon, the Senior Communications Manager at Clearway, Minnesota. If you are going to the workshop with Lynn Werman, that is in room 50B. She's the president and founder of WeCo Accessibility Services. And if you are going to the 10 o'clock session in room 50A, you should also do that now. That is with Henry Nahursky, a user experience designer at Health Partners. 50A and 50B are downstairs. I'll say more about our speaker in this auditorium in 2 minutes.